My name's Karen Rajat. I'm Unilytics Marketing Director, and presenting today will be Eric Tobias, our Vice President of Analytics Services. Eric will tell you all about how much time and resources you can save by automating Tableau dashboard updates, as well as preventing errors. But just before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about Unilytics, how we're related to Tableau, and why we know so much about building dashboards. So Unilytics has been a leader in business intelligence and analytics products and services since 2001. We have over 900 customers from a broad range of industries and functional areas. We specialize in Tableau and have been a Tableau certified partner for over 5 years. We're well experienced, having completed over 150 Tableau consulting engagements. Our services for Tableau include training, dashboard creation, and data warehouse and ETL work. This is just a small sample of some of the clients that we work with. So just before I hand things over to Eric, I want to let you know that there will be a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. You can just type questions in the control panel at the upper right corner of your screen at any time during the webinar. And also there will be a recording available following the webinar on our website. So I will now hand things over to Eric to get the presentation started.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So we're going to be talking about our Dashboard Configuration Manager, which is a set of infrastructure for Tableau dashboards that will help you to minimize work. So kind of the idea behind this, in the world of Tableau Zen, we spend a lot of times, we're working on our dashboards. We put all the text together, we link them together into various different dashboards that interconnect with each other. Our dashboards answer specific questions, just like they should. They work for an audience that we've designed them for, whether that's executives or whether that's analysts. They work specifically for our audience's needs. They provide good context, so you know how to interpret the visuals you're looking at. They provide actionable information, lots of great analytics. We then take those dashboards, we publish those to Tableau Server, for example. We have people using it, getting everything they need out of it. Life is grand, and then they start making some requests for changes. Can we move this dashboard from this location to that location? Can we change some of the text? Can we link this dashboard over to this other dashboard back on Tableau Server? So now we have enhancements that are coming in. So at that point, we now have an issue where we have multiple different versions. Again, if you're a single designer and you never have to work with anybody else and share your dashboards in an environment, then this isn't an issue. But if you're creating dashboards for others within your organization to consume, then you're going to run into a problem here because you have an old version of the workbook that they're currently used to, and you have different sets of requests coming in to update things. So how do we know about this? Not only do we train on Tableau, not only do we sell licenses for Tableau, but we also build lots and lots of Tableau dashboards. We built hundreds and hundreds of different dashboards for different clients. All of our technical staff here at Unilytics are Tableau masters. They've gone through the different trainings and certifications and all of that. So we definitely know Tableau. And we have worked with clients in all kinds of different environments. So some of them, everybody's local within a single office, and other clients we have where there's offices across the world and they need to have dashboards that have multiple languages in them, for example. So you have multiple versions, and those versions change over time. And even we find that it becomes very difficult to keep track of all of that because we may have one person on the team working on version 2.0 of a dashboard, and yet another team is already working on version 3 of the dashboard. And so you have different versions in different states of completeness, and that means there's a lot to get lost. So when it comes to maintaining that content, a lot of that static content becomes a huge amount of maintenance. By static content, we mean things like the images that are used for buttons. We mean the text that you type in for sheet titles or dashboard titles. It includes things like the hyperlinks that you use to link out through your URL actions, or it includes cross-dashboard links through dashboard actions, etc. All of that static content becomes really, really time consuming to maintain. The more dashboards you have, the more painful all of that maintenance is. And that's exactly where Dashboard Configuration Manager comes from, is from that whole concept that we put all of our time and effort into the visuals and our interactive dashboards, and we kind of forget the fact that as we are getting more and more dashboards, that static content is building up and becoming a larger and larger body of content that becomes harder and harder to maintain. So in our case, we get tired of having to constantly go back in, change our URLs when we publish from production or from development to production. If we change the way a dashboard works, we need to update help text that we display. So a lot of people will see that when you have question marks on your dashboard and you hover your mouse and it tells you how to use the dashboard. That sort of help text, it becomes very time consuming to maintain. Tooltips, titles, hyperlinks, all of that starts becoming a huge amount of content that we have to maintain. So DCM exists to try and address that. Again, a lot of this is related to creating dashboards in a corporate environment. Again, so if you are a single person creating dashboards for yourself, none of this is really relevant. Can still be helpful perhaps, but this is much more relevant when you have teams of people working on things and you have multiple different environments like development and staging and production. A lot of times we don't have the luxury of taking a dashboard, creating it from scratch and going directly into production with that. A lot of organizations we work with, even though theoretically Tableau is built on the concept of democratizing analytics, in a lot of organizations, IT says, our promotion process says nobody gets to publish stuff into production without it being reviewed first. So that also is a pain point that we have to deal with in Tableau. Again, as we have different versions and dashboards become more and more used, the number of versions increases. So now we have our beautiful visuals running in multiple environments with different versions, and all of that static workbook content maintenance really starts to become a big problem. Because if you forget and you make a change in version 2 and you forget that you need to make that change in version 3 as well, now your versions are out of sync. And so now you have different people not understanding what they're looking at because you forgot to update a piece of static content. How do most users end up handling the situation? So if you're building Tableau dashboards and you're trying to figure out how you're going to deal with this, you usually have to do the following. Log into the development Tableau server, open up the workbook. Let's say you're changing a dashboard title. So you open up that workbook, you make the modifications to that, you change that title. Let's say you also need to go with the production data source. So then what you need to do is you need to edit the data source and change it to the production version of the database. You then need to go through your workbook and all the places where you have text that you've typed in, you now have to update that. So that is, again, things like help text, tooltips, labels, titles, all of that. Anything that references development environment information, all of that has to be updated. Update your URL actions. These are things like hyperlinks within the workbook. That'd be URL actions on your dashboards. Anything that points to the development site has to be updated. So at this point, there's 3 things we've had to update. If you're using a report portal dashboard in your workbook, which I'll show you that here in a few minutes, the report portal, that page has to be updated because it's pointing to all of your development environment pages. Now you need to update that to go to production. So now that you've updated all 4 of those things, now you need to log out of the development Tableau server, back up under the server menu in Tableau desktop, log into the production environment, now publish that version that you made all the changes to up to production. So there you have the 9 steps that are required in order to update things like page title or dashboard titles or help text, etc. Lots and lots of changes. It becomes very, very manual and a lot to forget. An even bigger issue, I'm not sure how many of our attendees today are from Canada, where we have two official languages, but we definitely have this particular issue with many of our clients. Or if you're a larger multinational corporation and you have dashboards that need to be able to go to multiple countries, multiple languages becomes a big problem as well. What most people do for multiple languages is they create two versions of the dashboard, one English version, one French version, or one Spanish version, etc. So now you've taken the amount of content that you have to update and you've now multiplied it times the number of languages that you have to work with. Very complicated. So that's where DCM comes in. So the Dashboard Configuration Manager is all about taking that static content and we convert it from static content to dynamic content that's database driven. And now all of our static content is updated. So let's actually take a look at how this works. So I'm bringing over into view here. This is a Tableau Server environment. And so one of the first things that I'm going to show you is how DCM handles multiple environments. So if you notice up here in our URLs, I'm currently connected to our Unilytics corporate Tableau server, which you can see from the address bar up here, tableau.unilytics.com. You'll notice I'm also running a local Tableau server, which I will forewarn you is much slower because I'm running a full Tableau server on a laptop, but it is possible to do. So you'll notice here, I'm actually connected to a Tableau server running on my laptop. Still a dashboard, looks the same. In fact, if I flip between them, it's pretty much exactly the same. And here's yet another version of it. This one looks a little bit different, but this one is actually running up there on Tableau Public. So now we actually have multiple different versions of the exact same workbook running in multiple environments. And actually, let me go grab the Tableau Public URL that I need, because I actually pulled up the wrong URL. So let me go open that up. So this is still Tableau Public. Actually, that was, is that Tableau Public? No, that's back on our regular one. So let me come back over here. I want to confuse people. So you can see that the dashboard can run in multiple environments. So for example, here is the Tableau that is, this is using DCM so that we can see that. So you notice here that the nationwide sales, so this is a report portal. For those of you that aren't aware of this, report portals are a very handy way of giving your users access to the contents of your workbook by creating, it's almost like a replacement for stories. The main difference being that it has screenshots embedded in it. So for example, if I wanted to look at nationwide sales, I hover my mouse over this, it tells me nationwide sales. You'll see the URL underneath that. It gives you the purpose and description of the dashboard. So you have all of that useful information, but notice that the link inside there is going to https://tableau.unilytics.com. So in the Unilytics Tableau server, the link points to the Unilytics Tableau server. So when I click on this link, it's loading up the nationwide sales dashboard from our local network, so our local Tableau server. Here's the exact same dashboard. This one's running on my Tableau server on my local workstation. So this is my laptop. Notice when I hover over there, the link, instead of pointing to our Tableau server on our network, it's actually pointing to localhost. So in the tooltip there, you can see nationwide sales, http://localhost. So I don't have to change any configuration. All I have to do, and I don't have to manually edit any URLs, all I have to do is tell Tableau which environment I want this to run in. So inside here, I've told Tableau this dashboard should run in development, local workstation environment. And when I tell it to use a particular environment, it updates all the URLs so that when I click on them, notice here, it's still going to my local Tableau server and pulls up the content from my local Tableau server. So imagine in your environment, if you have an enterprise Tableau implementation and you have a development environment and a production environment, if you want to move your dashboard from development to production, all you have to do is go in and tell Tableau, I want this to run in a different environment. As soon as you do that, all of the hyperlinks update based off of what the server's address is, and there are no static updates. All it is one change. And again, this works in any Tableau server environment. So I've demoed here for you Tableau Public, a local Tableau server, a network Tableau server. It also works with Tableau Online. So any of the various flavors of Tableau server, it will all work. Notice other things that you can do down inside here. You can have various hierarchies of content. So for example, you could actually even have a situation where you have this dashboard, and this is the executive version of the dashboard. And now you want to actually take a look at this from the analyst team perspective, or the business analysts. So if you were to change the team, then the content updates itself, and now you're looking at it from their perspective. So again, it's all done from a single dashboard instead of having multiple dashboards. As another example, this probably makes it even more obvious. This is version 2. If you notice down here in the context, it says we're running version 2.0.3 of this particular dashboard, which is our corporate performance reporting dashboard. So version 2.0.3, the only language in this environment is English. But what we've actually done is we have a version 3 of this dashboard. So notice down here, our contextual information workbook version is now 3.0. In version 3.0 of the dashboard, we actually have multiple languages in there. So I can actually come over here, notice here on my tab, so this is just a Tableau workbook. I'm going to come over to my configuration. I'm going to tell Tableau, I want to see this in Portuguese. So I'm going to click on Portuguese. What you'll notice here is you'll notice that all of the text changed. I don't pretend to speak Portuguese. We happen to have a native Portuguese speaker in the office. So I'm not going to try and actually pronounce any of this. But notice in the display text, this is all Portuguese now. Or if I change to French, now all of this is in French. So the way this becomes nice is now if I come back to nationwide sales, remember before we were looking at this, and we had our titles, and our titles were nationwide sales. So nationwide sales, that's in English. Here's what it would look like if it were in French. And so you have the different titles that are all updating. Likewise, if I come back to my configuration, change it over to Portuguese, look at my dashboard again, now I have all of my titles appearing as Portuguese versions of them. So again, all I had to do in order to do all of this is actually just use this drop-down and configure the language that I wanted to work with. Whether I have 1 language, 5 languages, any number of languages can all be supported. And even longer bodies of text. So for example, if I wanted to go look at this story, there's a story that you'll have access to after the webinar, where we actually give you a longer description of how everything works so you can read it at your leisure. But notice inside here, I changed the workbook language. I'm still looking at Portuguese. So here's the entire story. If I step through the story points, every one of those is now being displayed in Portuguese. Or if I wanted the French version, come back over to configuration, choose French, come back and look at my story. Oops, didn't want to do that. And we'll now look at the French version of the story. And so now here's all of the French. So same story. I didn't have to change anything. I didn't change any links. I didn't change any text. And yet everything inside here now is in French. So anything that is static can be replaced. So again, inside here, you'll notice that things that in the old days, what you would have had to do, let me demo this. So here's a workbook. Here's the old-fashioned way of having to do this. If I actually wanted to note inside here, I've misspelled my view title. If I wanted to fix this, I would actually have to come in here, double-click, go in there, fix the spelling, click OK. Now I'd have to go to Tableau Server, sign in, publish the workbook, lots of extra steps inside there. But with a DCM, it's actually database driven. So what I've dragged into the view now is I've dragged in the actual database interface where I can come in here and I could actually change any of my titles inside here just by making modifications to the database. So here we have our sheet title for the sales versus profit visual. I can add any amount of text that I want to. And if I save that, I would have to this is based on an extract, so I'd have to re-extract this, which I'm not going to do right now. But if you extracted this and then come back into your dashboard, it would automatically be updated. So you would never have to go back into the dashboard and make changes like text, static text inside there, because it would be database driven. So all of those steps would no longer be necessary. It'll all be done through a central location, through a central interface, and it would automatically replicate out to any of the dashboards that are using that infrastructure. So that's kind of an idea behind DCM and how it works. It can also be driven via URLs. So if you wanted to have, let's say you have an intranet and you wanted to put a link, for example, to the French or the English or the Portuguese version, it's all run by parameters. So you can actually populate the parameter values from outside of Tableau so that people can link directly into various different languages or versions, etc. So a little bit of a look under the covers and how this works. So DCM changes all of that static content, such as tooltips, help, URLs, to dynamic database content, which is what I was showing you. The workbook configuration can be changed easily by just changing the parameter values. The parameter values allow you to change languages, to change versions, etc. Any changes you make to that workbook configuration, and let me show you again. So the structure that we use inside here is organizations consist of teams. Teams work on projects. Projects may have different environments where you publish your content, and within the environment you'll have multiple different workbooks. So there's a hierarchy of content that the DCM supports. You could have a different hierarchy in your environment. So if your organization isn't a huge multinational corporation, maybe you only need a couple of different levels in your hierarchy. But it can be as complex or as simple as you need it to be. Anytime you make a change to any of those content levels in the hierarchy, your content would automatically update. This is kind of what it looks like and how it gets implemented. So we have organizations, we have projects, and we have teams and workbooks, environments. So there's a set of tables that DCM requires to be configured. And then all of the text that you would normally type in directly into your workbook goes into the database instead. You enter it into the database. You then connect from inside Tableau. Here are your connections. So if I were going to show you the actual Tableau dashboard this is built on, if I come back over here, here's my workbook configuration. And if I go look, for example, at my view, here's all of those tables that I need to connect to. So display text handles all of the words that are displayed in the dashboards. These are the links. So these are the links that know which environment you're running in, so they can automatically update those. The various different sheets that exist inside your workbooks, that comes from this data source. So all of that static content becomes part of your data source. And then instead of actually just typing in text, so instead of the title here being nationwide sales, I actually put in a field name. And then anytime that content underneath changes, so if your database changes, your display text here would automatically update. So this now becomes dynamic instead of static. So that's an introduction to it. There's a lot more we could go into. We're trying to keep it fairly simple there. So I will check now with Karen and see if we have any questions that have come up.